Hey, REIClub members, it's George Uno again. My guest today is Joe McCall, a real family man and super successful real estate investor. Now, being a true Midwesterner, Joe is as humble and down to earth as anyone you'll ever meet, but he is a bona fide celebrity, tens of thousands of YouTube subscribers, and hundreds of podcast appearances. Hey, Joe, how you doing today?
Hey, George. Good, man. Thank you for having me on.
Of course, it's always a pleasure, man. You are the master of lease options, and we're going to get into that a little later. But first, let's start off with your life before real estate investing. I understand you were a civil engineer until the Great Recession. How'd you get into real estate investing?
Well, good question. I had some friends that were doing real estate at the time. Well, rewind even further. I was working for an engineering company as a civil engineer. They transferred me out to California for a job. And you remember, maybe you don't, I don't know, when Enron collapsed. Mm-hmm. And when Enron collapsed, it sent shockwaves through the energy industry, which was where I was working. We were building a power plant. And so our job shut down early, and they sent me back to Kansas City. We were supposed to be there for 2 or 3 years. We were only there for 10 months. Well, in that time, we just bought a house, and we had been there about 6 months, and then we decided to rent it out. And during that time, we were in San Francisco. We were renting that property out. This was 2000, 2001. It was a complete disaster, nightmare. The tenant was always late. Every week, they called us with something new that had to be fixed. And I got so frustrated paying a plumber $50 an hour to repair something that I could have done for free in 15 minutes. So I said, no, I'm never going to own rental property again. And when we got back, we didn't have a place to live either because there were still 2 months left on the lease. So anyway, fast forward a couple, 3 years, and I had a friend who was doing real estate. This is 2003 and 4. And he was doing really well. He was buying duplexes. He was getting some education. He let me borrow some of his courses that he had manuals and books. And I thought, this is interesting. And he recommended a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You've all heard of that. And so I read that book and I got excited about real estate. I actually went down to Austin, Texas to meet a guy who was building duplexes and selling them. And I contemplated buying a duplex. And he recommended, you read this book, he recommended 2 books to me, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I'd already read, and another book called Secrets of a Millionaire Landlord, and by a guy named Robert Sheeman. And it's funny, I was just talking to Robert Sheeman yesterday, which is crazy, small world. This was 2005, so 16 years ago. But I read that book, Secrets of a Millionaire Landlord, and he had a chapter in there about lease options. And one of the things he said that really got me excited was, he said, you can actually rent properties to people who want to buy them, tenant buyers, people who are going to take better care of the house because they're renting it for a period of time before they buy it. And I thought, that's fantastic. So you can get a tenant in the house who actually wants to buy it, who's going to take better care of it, who's not going to call you every time something needs to be fixed. So I started getting interested in this concept of lease options and wholesaling and doing real estate. I started reading more and more books, started buying tons of courses and going to eBay, buying courses on eBay. And then by this time I'd moved to St. Louis, Missouri. And I was real interested. I started going to the local real estate clubs. And this was at the height of the market, 2006. Everybody's talking about real estate. And so then I started buying deals with bank financing, started getting banks to buy properties, and I would sell them on lease options. And that was okay until the market crashed. And also by this time I had about 15 properties. And I had bought, half of them with banks, and the other half I'd bought with creative financing, owner financing, subject twos, lease options. I was borrowing a lot of private money, and I was counting on appreciation on all of these properties. I was counting on appreciation, and all of a sudden the appreciation disappeared. I had barely enough cash flow, and I started hemorrhaging cash, and I started having tons of vacancies. And so fast forward 3 or 4 years, almost went into bankruptcy, lost almost everything. It was horrible. And when the market was, this was probably 2008 or 9, 2008, I started wholesaling, which is where you negotiate a deal you get it under contract, at a cheap price, and then you flip that contract to an investor for 5 to 10 grand, and then they take over your contract and they buy it. So you're like flipping paper. And I'd heard about that before, but I thought, yeah, you know what? I'm a more sophisticated investor. That's for beginners. And so I kind of ignored wholesaling. So I started wholesaling though, actually, when my back was against the wall. I was hemorrhaging cash and started making money doing that. And this was at a point too where I was done working in a cubicle. I wanted out. I didn't want to work for the man anymore. I wanted to work for myself. And so about this time too, I wasn't making enough money wholesaling to quit my job. But I found out about lease options, and I started finding people that would find a property to buy as a lease option and then would sell that lease option to the tenant buyer and be done in the deal. So in a regular wholesaling deal, you flip that contract to a cash buyer or a landlord. And in a lease option assignment or a wholesaling lease option deal, you flip that contract to a tenant buyer, and then you're done and out of the deal. You're done. You're out of the deal. And I found at this time in 2009, it was easier to do those deals than it was lease option deals because there were so many more sellers with only a little bit of equity. And so I started flipping lease options, or what I call wholesaling lease options. And I did for about a 3-month period of time when I first started doing this. I was making more money doing lease options than I was in my full-time job. And I was making good money. I was making 75 grand a year or so. And at that point, I quit my job in the spring of 2009 and haven't looked back since. So it's been 12 years now that I've been doing real estate full-time. A couple years later, fast forward a couple years, I started getting people asking me to teach them how to do what I was doing. So I started my podcast. I started selling books and courses on and doing coaching and doing done for you marketing services to people as well at a couple years later. And yeah, it's been a fun ride.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, we've all hopefully read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I like your story of getting out of the rat race. That's really funny.
Well, yeah, I didn't get out the rat race the way that he says you should, right? And there's some things I disagree with in that book. I like how he teaches you how to think bigger, how to think differently. Instead of asking yourself, instead of saying, I can't afford that, you ask, how can I afford that? And that was mind blowing to me. That was awesome. But I disagree with the idea of taking on a ton of debt and using leverage to get out of the rat race. Now, I know a lot of people disagree with me on that, but having been where I was over leveraged and I had way too much debt, I had no margin for error. And that's where, I see this happening again. It's going to happen again later on down the road. Investors are buying properties on speculation. They're hoping that the property appreciates. They're ignoring the fundamentals, and they're going to get in trouble. Now, the investors, there is a smart way to use debt. There is a smart way to use debt if the fundamentals are there, if it cash flows, right? Like real cash flow, like after all of your expenses are paid, after you're setting aside money for vacancies and future repairs, after you're setting aside money for that hot water heater, that air conditioner, that roof that's going to need to be replaced in 3 years, and you're still cash flowing a couple hundred a month, and you still have thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in the bank for unforeseen things, that's when it's good maybe to use leverage or debt to build a rental portfolio. But I still tell people you should be paying those off as quickly as you can. I mean, it's much, much better to own just 10 to 20 free and clear rental properties than 100 leveraged rental properties. Because when you own 10 or 20, if you have a vacancy, it doesn't hurt as much, right?
Right.
If you have some vacancies on 100 properties and you're paying a management company and, there's so much, it's so much harder. Now it can be done obviously, but for me, I'm more of a lifestyle guy and I don't want to put my family at risk ever again with making stupid financial decisions and taking on too much debt. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, you learn the hard way. So obviously,
Yes.
you've been there, done that. So what's the most common challenge people have in getting started with lease options, and how do they overcome that?
Oh, it's simple, overthinking it, complicating it too much, thinking that they have to have all their I's dotted and all their T's crossed, and they have to understand all of their questions and get it all answered before taking any action.
Mhm.
That's a big deal, right? Like I tell people, stop asking what if and start asking what next. So like just worry about steps 1 and 2. Stop worrying about steps 7 and 8. Do step 1, then do step 2, then do step 3. And so and this is true for any strategy you're doing. It's so easy to overanalyze things. And as an engineer with my background, when we would build an office building or a power plant or whatever, we would, you'd get a big stack of plans, right? You could see from the underground utilities to the foundations to the steel structure to the finishes. You could see every step of the process as it happened, right? And as I did a lot of math and calculus courses in school, and so there was always one answer to a problem, and there was always one path to that answer. And so I was used to seeing everything in a blueprint laid out in advance. And so when I got into real estate, that was hard for me to overcome. And so people really struggle sometimes because they have to have all the answers and they want, but here's the problem. Every single deal is different. Every deal is different. And there's always going to be things that come up that weren't planned for, that weren't planned on. And you're dealing with people and you're dealing with sales and negotiations. And real estate is more of a people business. So it's hard for people to get their mind wrapped around lease options. They think it's easy. And here's the thing. Lease options or wholesaling, whatever it is, that's easy. It's investors that are complicated, right? Because we get in our head and we think like, you know, we think that it's way too complicated, or like I said, we feel like we have to understand all of the steps, all the different scenarios where if the seller says this, then I say this, or if this happens in 2 years, then I do this. So it's easy to get paralyzed in fear and to get analysis paralysis. So I try to just really teach people to keep it simple. And this is another thing I encourage people to do. Like maybe do some regular wholesaling deals first before you start doing lease option deals, right? Like cash deals are super easy. You only have one thing to negotiate, and that's the price. When it comes to lease option deals, you got like 3 or 4 things to negotiate. You have the price,
Mm,
the rent, the term, the number of years, who does the repairs. I think I'm forgetting. Down payment, So it's like
mhm.
there's a lot more things to negotiate than a lease option deal. And a cash deal, it's just one thing, it's price. So in a lot of ways, get your first deal out of the way by doing a regular cash wholesaling deal, right? And then once you start learning how to do deals and you overcome the fear of of making money and doing deals, then maybe when you're talking to that next seller and they owe too much on their property, they owe 180 on a $200,000 house, right? Maybe do a lease option on that property. So for now, I just tell people focus, focus, focus. Just do a deal, do a cash deal, make cash offers, get a deal under your belt, get some confidence, and then start adding on other strategies like lease options, subject twos, owner financing, private lending, things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That analysis paralysis is so real. And
Yeah.
so is that fear of success. I've heard that mentioned a lot. Russell Brunson, Alex Hormozy, they've
Yeah.
all mentioned that recently.
Oh yeah.
Someone who I met down in Florida with you who has overcome all that is Gavin.
Yeah.
Now, what's his story and how has he gone to be such a successful student of yours?
Gavin's cool, man. We've become friends. He's helping me in the coaching business now, but he's one of those guys who just takes incredible, massive action. And like, he doesn't have to have it all figured out. And I wish I was more like that. Just like, let's go. We're going to jump off this building and figure out how to fly as we fall. Right. And so, um, when he was getting started, somebody said, you can make money doing real estate. And she said, okay, I'm going to do it then. And he bought a course, and I was kind of helping this guy in the course, but this guy was in England. So the guy in England told me, hey, will you help this guy, Gavin? Because, he's in the United States. So I said, sure. And so he went and did a bunch of direct mail in a really competitive market, I think Phoenix. And he spent all the money he had on direct mail, and that campaign didn't get any leads. And now he's like, what do I do? And so either me or this other guy from England, I forget who, told him, well, go to your local real estate club and just start asking people, do you have any old leads? So that's what he did. He didn't know what he was doing. He got a suit and a tie. He went to a local real estate club, which, if you've ever been to a REIA, like a Real Estate Investors Association, nobody wears suits and ties and those things, right? But he's wearing a suit and tie. He's nervous. But it comes time when everybody stands up if you have a deal to sell or if you're looking to buy a deal or whatever. And he stands up and says, hey, I am a new investor, and if you have old leads, this is what he said, something like this. If you have old leads, I'm good on the phone. I will call your old leads and follow up your old leads with you if we can split the deal or whatever. So a couple of people came up to him afterwards, and one lady said, yeah, I've got some old leads. And I think she gave him 40 old leads or something like that. And he started calling them immediately and got 2 or 3 properties under contract and then wholesaled them. And he had no idea how to even do any of this. And this is what I like about Gavin. Me, I would have been like, okay, now tell me. I would have sat down with that lady. I would have said to her, tell me what to say. How do you make the offers? What if the property's in this zip code or this area? How do I analyze the deal? How do I figure the after repair value and the repairs and the wholesale fee? And do you have a spreadsheet I can calculate the offers on and all that? He's like, none of that. He's just give me the phone numbers. I'll call them. And so then he gets a seller that says, well, this is what he says to the seller. Hey, Jim, this is Gavin. You probably don't remember us. We talked to you a little while ago about your house at 123 Main Street. I'm just following up. Have you sold it yet? I'm just curious. And so of the 30 or 40 that he called, he got 2 or 3 properties under contract. I think he got 3. And then he calls the lady and says, hey, I got these 2 or 3 people that want to sell. Now what do I do? And she's like, oh, that's awesome. Go ahead and make them this offer. And then he calls them back and says, okay, yeah, we can offer you this. Okay, great. Send the paperwork over. Okay. I'll get back to you. Then he goes to the lady and says, all right, now I got to send the paperwork. What do I do? And she tells him. So he's like the what next guy, right? What do I do next? What do I do next? What do I do next? Instead of what if? And so then, he learns by just taking massive action, massive imperfect action. He's not afraid to look like an idiot. He just wants to make some money. He knows this works. So, and then, they get under contract, they wholesale it, and he splits the deal with her. And he only made $2 or $3 grand on those deals, on each of those 2 or 3 deals, but it lit a fire under him. And he realized, oh my gosh, I do that. And he didn't have any money for marketing, but he can go find other people with old leads. And so that's what he started doing. He started finding other people with old leads. And then he had people coming up to him saying, hey, listen, I'll pay for the marketing. You just work the leads and we'll split the deals. And he started doing that. And he started building his money. So, he often says this, and this is so good. If you're not on the phone, you're not making money. And so if you don't like being on the phone, this may not be the business for you. If you're not on the phone, if you're not making offers, you're not making money. So if you want to be in real estate, and if you don't want to be on the phone, find somebody else who will be on the phone. Be that lady at the REIA who's got old leads, and find that hungry guy who's on the phone, who doesn't mind being on the phone, and give those leads to him. Does that make sense? Yeah. So Gavin's really good at sales. I'm more of the technical analytical guy, right? So anymore, I'm not the guy on the phone talking to sellers. I partner with local people that will get on the phone and go meet with sellers and talk to them and make the offers. I'm the guy behind the scenes doing the marketing, building the systems, setting up the CRM, building the funnels and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess that suits you guys perfectly. The engineer does the analytical stuff, and the sales guy does the sales.
Yeah.
And that is something cool about Gavin. He is definitely a massive action taker.
Yeah.
And
anybody I know in this business that's doing well, they take massive imperfect action. And a lot of wholesalers I know that are making a lot of money, they've never even bought a course, right? They've never even bought a course or watched a YouTube video on how to do this stuff. They saw other people doing it and they said, I wonder what they're doing. I'm going to go hang out with them. And they'll go and hang out with them, learn how to do what they're doing, and they learn by doing. So many of us are wanting to learn first and then do, but there's nothing wrong with that, right? The best investment you can ever make are the 4 inches in between your ears. But education without implementation is, I forget how that saying goes, but like it's a complete waste of time and money. Like you've got to implement what you learn. And I would tell people, like I'm creating a new course right now, and I'm designing this course to where, it's on the honor system, but like you can't go to the next video until you do what's on video 1. And you can't go to video 3 until you do what's on video 2. It's really simple. I'm not going to be giving them choices. I'm not going to be showing them, all right, these are 3 or 4 different ways you can do marketing. And these are 3 different ways you can make offers. And these are 4 different contracts that you can use. I'm going to tell them, no, step 1, go do this. Just right now, stop, go do it, and then come back. All right, did you do it? All right, no, go back and do it. Now, after you've done that, let's do this. And so it's just real simple, step by step. This business is not complicated, right? It's number 1, believe that you can do it. Get rid of the stinking thinking. Number 1, believe that you can do it. Number 2, marketing. You got to do the marketing. Number 3, you got to talk to sellers. Number 4, you got to make offers. And number 5, you got to follow up. And if you do those things, you'll do deals. So stop complicating it and just take massive action. You can't drive a parked car, right? So people just need to get over their fears and kick themselves in the butt and just take massive action. I'm looking at one of my assistant. Her name is Whitney. She sent me a text earlier. I'm looking at it right now. She was one of my first coaching students. Back in 2011 or something, I created a course. I sold it, and it was a small coaching program at the time. And I told people, if you do 3 deals, I will give you your money back. And I remember her coming up to me when I spoke. It was at a real estate investing club here in St. Louis. And she said, let me get this straight. If I buy your course and I do 3 deals, you will give me my money back, right? I said, yeah, just give me a testimonial. And she said, okay. And sure enough, the next time I see her, it's a couple months later, and she's done 3 deals. And she says, here are my 3 deals. Give me my money back. I said, oh, that's awesome. So, and she gave me a testimonial. I gave her her money back. And then I asked her later on, I said, hey, can you maybe help me sell my deals? So I was getting deals under contract. I hired her part-time to sell my deals. She was like my dispositions manager. And we did a ton of deals together. And then it got to a point where she couldn't do real estate anymore. She wanted to, I forget the whole story, but we stopped working together. And 5 or 7 years later or whatever, I was looking for an admin assistant, and I knew that was somebody who was a massive action taker, who could get it done and wasn't going to bombard me with questions of all of these what ifs. Like when we were doing deals together, she would only reach out to me or call me if there was a check that I needed to sign, or if a deal was dead and it fell through or something like that. Right. And so, yeah, we've been working together now she's my main assistant for about 3 years now, I think 3 or 4 years. But I like working with people like that, right? They're massive action takers. They're ready, fire, aim. They're not, and I was like this. I was a professional student for 3 years, right? I was the ready, aim, buy another course, ready, aim, buy another course, ready, aim. And I'd never get to fire. The people that are successful are ready, fire, aim. What's that phrase? I forget this phrase I'm thinking of, but like they'll study a little bit and then go out and implement it. And then they'll make mistakes, they'll readjust, then they'll fire again, and then they'll make a mistake and they'll aim back again and they'll fire again. And they don't care about making mistakes and falling forward and failing. That's part of the job. That's what happens. And so I get passionate about this because I see so many people quit and give up, spend thousands of dollars on coaching. And there was a friend of mine I saw on a Facebook forum. He's a coach, and somebody asked him about the coaching program. And he asked the guy, he said, what's the difference between your program and this program? And the guy said to him, let me just ask you something first. Are you an analytical type or a action taker? And the guy said, I'm more analytical. I'm studying this stuff. And he said, listen, don't even sign up for my coaching program. Don't sign up for any coaching program. And this is what he told him. He said, go watch a bunch of free YouTube videos. You're not ready. And he was telling this guy, I'm not even going to take your money, even if you wanted to pay me, because you don't have the right the mentality. You don't have the right mindset. And so I love that, because this is a coach that could have maybe sold this guy or tried to talk him into his coaching program. But he said, and I have mad respect for him. He said, and his name is Pace Morby. I'll just tell you who his name is. Pace Morby. Great guy. He said, listen, you don't need a coaching program right now. You go watch some YouTube videos. And when you get over the analytical phase and you start getting into implementation mode, then let's talk, because then I can help you. I think that's brilliant. I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah, wow. I think we all know Pace now. He's a huge celebrity. And that's one of the things that sets him apart, I think, is a lot of his challenges are they do it right with you. You watch them do it. It's all about doing. And
stop asking questions, man. I mean, and there's so many yeah butters out there. I call them yeah butters, right? They're like, yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but what about that? And I get these questions, on a lease option, for example. What if the seller in 3 years decides they don't want to sell it anymore? And I'm going to ask them, well, did that actually happen to you? Does that actually happen to you? Have you actually done a deal and it's been 3 years and the seller says, I don't want to sell anymore? No, I'm just wondering what happens if it does. Or another question is well, what if I'm advertising a property and then the real estate commission says, hey, you have to have a real estate license to do that. I was like, well, has that happened to you yet? Right? What if the seller says no to my offer? I had a question today. I've been making a ton of calls and text messages, and I get a bunch of no's. I'm just getting all I'm getting is no's. I was like, well, okay, well, how many have you dialed? How many people have you called? How many people have you talked to? And it's only 15. This is what I challenge people with, right? I dare you, if you're listening to this right now, I dare you to get 50 no's. I bet you can't get 50 no's. And what I'm doing here is I'm hopefully doing some reverse psychology on you, because you're going to have to get 50 no's before you get a yes. So I dare you to go get 50 no's. Go get 15 sellers to tell you no. I bet you can't do it. Because what happens then is when you want to challenge me? Come on, let's go. All right. I'm going to go make 50 calls. I'll race you to see who gets to the first 50. But guess what happens? When you do that, you're going to get a yes, right? You're going to find a motivated seller that says, well, maybe, right? Now, there you go. So that's how you do deals. You go for no. You start chasing sellers and you start making a lot of offers, and the more no's you get, the better, because after 50 no's, you're going to get a yes. Does that make sense? So yeah, don't stop. Don't stop. Stop. I'll say this one more thing too. There's a guy, Frank Kern, and he's an internet marketing guy. He's funny. He's really funny. He's got a potty mouth, but he said there's 3 commandments. I think I got this right. Oh yeah, there's 2 commandments in business. Okay. And you should look this up on YouTube. You should look it up, go to YouTube, do a search for Frank Kern, 2 commandments of business, and make sure your kids aren't in the same room, but it's really good. He says that rule number 1, stop. And I'll use the nice language. Stop farting around. That's rule number 1 in business. Okay. Stop farting around. We're spending all this time learning and just farting around. We're not doing anything, right? We're studying, we're buying course after course after course, and we're never doing anything with what we're learning. We're just farting around. Just stop kidding yourself. And I say this oftentimes too. Your speed to income is directly proportional to the number of offers that you make, right? So if you're not making money yet, why not? It's probably because you're not making enough offers. And the more offers you make, the more quickly you're going to be making money. So your speed to income is directly proportional to the number of offers that you make. So why aren't you making offers? You're just farting around. Okay. So stop farting around. The second commandment of business is thou shalt not be a sissy. That's the nice word, right? Because we'll go and spend tens of thousands of dollars on our education. But when it comes time to buy a list or to pay for some skip tracing or to sign up for a CRM, and it's $200, or it's maybe it's $1,000 to buy this list and to send let's say you're going to send 2,000 letters. And then all of a sudden you're like freaking out. Oh my gosh, I can't do that. But you can go spend tens of thousands of dollars on the education, but you can't go spend $1,000 on direct mail or whatever, because you're like, man, what if it doesn't work? Well, you need to stop being a sissy and get out there and make it happen. And that's a really good philosophy, I guess you could say, right? Because people need to get it out of their head that they can't do it, that they're going to fail. Some people are afraid of success. Some people are afraid of failure. Whatever it is that's going on in your head, you got to reprogram things. And one of the best ways that I found to do that is to listen to podcasts like this and go find YouTube videos where people are interviewing people that are doing deals. And, I just interviewed one of my students. He's doing over $10,000 a month right now in passive income from selling vacant land. So he's selling vacant land on notes. So he's selling vacant land with owner financing. And in 1 year, he's got over $10,000 in monthly recurring revenue with virtually zero expenses doing this. And so I just interviewed him. I got excited. I got fired up. And when I see students that are out there doing deals, making money, and are not afraid to make mistakes, it fires me up. And I challenge people all the time, like, go listen to the interviews on different podcasts and YouTube videos of people that are actually doing it. And just tell yourself, like, it's real. I can do that. If that idiot can do it, then I can do it.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, it's so hard to just get started, that fear of failure and fear of success.
Yeah.
But I mean, you'll never succeed until you fail. Who succeeds on their first try? Nobody. So Joe, I like that you filtered Frank Kern's language for us. That must be your Midwest upbringing.
I'm sure Lee will appreciate that too, right?
Oh, I'm sure. How has faith played a role in the way you approach business and life?
Oh man, I love God. I love Jesus Christ. And so I'm not a perfect Christian. Nobody is, right? But he radically changed my life back in November of 1988. I became a Christian in November of 1988. And I'm super blessed, right? Like, I don't deserve this. God's blessed me with a wonderful family. We go to an awesome church. There's a really, really good book that had a huge impact on me a few years ago when I read it, called The Blessed Life. And it's a book about being generous. And when we are generous, then God blesses us back many times over. And there's a real spiritual principle of reaping and sowing. And we don't give to get. But when you understand being the blessed life, being blessed by God, you get excited because you get to give. Big difference. So, God has really opened up and blessed us in a lot of ways. The more generous we've been, and it's kind of hard to explain it. Maybe it doesn't make sense, but that for me has been a big thing in my business, right? So we tithe 10% of the gross income that we make. And that is so much fun. I love writing big checks to church, to ministries. We're helping people. We donate money to our church, obviously, first. That's the tithe, right? We give a bunch of extra money in offerings. We also support a lot of missionaries. We support persecuted Christians in other countries. We got to build a well in Myanmar. I think it's what it's called these days, right? Myanmar. Mm-hmm. We got to build a well and a church there, and in a heavily, like, a persecuted area. And now the kids there have clean water, and they have a church where they can go and stay out of the rain and stuff like that. So it's like, we get to do that kind of stuff. Are you kidding me? So I believe God blesses us to be a blessing to others, right? And just, I don't want to brag about this, but because it's kind of sad and it makes me mad. Like 700 people from Mayo Clinic got fired today because they didn't get the jab. All right, so forget about the politics and all that. I'm mad that they were fired because they refused to comply to the vaccine mandate. No matter what you think of it, okay, forget it. But like these people lost their jobs because they didn't want to get the vaccine. That's not fair. That's not right, in my opinion. So I posted something on Facebook. I said, hey, if anybody knows any of those 700 people, let me know. I'll pay their salary for 3 months while I train them how to do real estate for free. And I'll get reimbursed out of the money from their deals. And if they don't do a deal, then I'm out that money for the 3 months so like God's blessed me to make a generous offer like that to somebody who unfairly and unjustly lost their job. And, but I think that's why God's blessed us. God's blessed us to bless others, especially the poor, the less fortunate, especially people in other countries that can't get fresh drinking water. The kids are starving. People are being persecuted for their faith. So like, that's why I have this business. That's why I have these awards on the wall, because God just keeps on giving us more and more, so we can give more and more away. I want to die a broke man, right? I don't want to have a huge endowment, and our kids know we're not giving them a bunch of money when we die, right? I want to give it all away. I want to die a financially broke man, because I know my eternal reward in heaven. I want to be rich in heaven, right? Like I don't necessarily want to be wealthy here on earth. I want to be wealthy in heaven. And because that's the time in eternity. Am I preaching here?
No.
Time and eternity, that's going to go on forever, right? Like this little time we have here on earth is like a vapor. It's just gone like that. So let's invest in things that make an eternal difference. Come on, why not? We get to do that. That's why God's blessed us with money. That's why God's blessed us as a country. That's why he's blessed us with real estate investing, technology and the computers and the way that we can do this stuff, and we can share the message. We can teach people how to find financial independence. That's why God's allowed us to do that. So we can bless the world and share his love, right? Come on.
Right. That's amazing, Joe. I mean, just hearing about the well in Myanmar and all that stuff you're doing, just you have that real abundance mindset, and you're blessing others. It's just so amazing to see, sharing
people
everything.
should read that book. It's called The Blessed Life by Robert Morris. Really, really good book. I've read that thing 2 or 3 times now, and it's great.
I'll post a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Joe, for all of that. You weren't preaching at all. I mean, I think
right.
this crowd really loves that stuff.
Come on.
Hey, so I got a few questions here at the end, the lightning round. I like to run my guests through. So, who is your favorite leader?
Well, of course, Jesus Christ, right? But besides him, my pastor. Yeah, I totally respect. Mad respect for my pastor. He's just a laid back, cool guy, approachable, and I like him a lot. My dad was a great leader in my life. Who else? Russell Brunson's a great leader. I've learned so much from Russell Brunson in terms of running a business and the importance of marketing. But that's a good question. I love reading history novels. History books about leaders in history. So, I really respect generals from World War II and the Civil War and Revolutionary War. Those are good books to read. I'm reading one right now on it's called The Indispensables, and it's about the Marbleheaders, the guys from Marblehead, Massachusetts, who were with George Washington during the Revolutionary War. And that's a really cool book.
Oh, interesting. You have to send me that. I should put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, it's called The Indispensables. It's not the best book I've ever read on the Revolutionary War. If you really want to read some really good books on the Revolutionary War, there's some books called The Rise to Rebellion and The Glorious Cause. And they're written by a guy, last name is Shaara, Shaara, I believe. The Glorious Cause and The Rise to Rebellion. Those 2 books are phenomenal. And he's written some books on the Civil War that are even better. But
For the Revolutionary War, those are the two.
Yes.
Okay. And what's a quote you live by?
One of my favorites is like, and this ties into what we were just talking about. It's by Jim Elliott, and it says, he is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose.
Wow.
He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose.
I like that. And then what are some personality traits that you think contributed to your success?
Dogged determination, like, even though I am over analytical in a lot of ways, like I just refuse to give up. And in some ways I'm a little gullible too. Like if I see somebody that does something, I just think, all right, I can do it. If they can do it, I can do it. And even if they may have over exaggerated or not told the whole truth, like I'm going to believe them and I'm going to do it anyway, regardless, because it sounds cool. So I'm constantly, I see somebody that's doing something and I'm like, okay, how did they do that? And I'm going to do the same thing. And so I'll just duplicate and model what they're doing. And so I'm a little gullible in a certain sense. Like some people, and my coach has told me this is kind of why I'm bringing this up. My coach in particular is more pessimistic, like doubtful, like he's more skeptical. I tend to believe people more. Right. So in a lot of ways, I think that's helped my success because, I just, if that guy's doing deals, then I can do it. When I was getting started, I met this guy who was doing lease options in India, in Chicago, from India in Chicago, all by the phone. And I met another guy that was doing lease option deals on the beach in in Atlanta from a beach condo in Florida. And this was way back, like when nobody was doing that. And I found these two people that were doing it. I'm like, oh, okay, well then I can do it too. I didn't ask questions. I mean, I did ask questions like how they did it, but I believed it. And I went and did it. So anyway.
Yeah, you didn't get caught up in asking questions. You kind of like, oh, they could do it. I'm going to go and do it. That's cool. Yeah. It's that massive action again. All right, guys. Well, yeah, Joe McCall, thanks for being my guest. We've got a promo with you guys next week. If you guys are interested in learning more about that, go to REIClub.com/Joe, and we'll get you hooked up.
Come on.
All right, Joe. Thanks a lot for your time.
All right. Thanks, man. We'll see you guys.
Until next time.